Mr. Jim Fitzpatrick, who is the business development consultant and mentor of ingredient sourcing solutions. What are your predictions for the Northern Hemisphere crop in 2017? ASEAN prices, how is it going to be? The quality issues, the size of the crop, and such stuff.
Well, that's what they call the $64,000 question. I suppose so far we can say that the indications are good across West Africa, India, and in Vietnam.
Yes.
Everything we're hearing is pointing to an average to good crop. We're hopeful and optimistic at this stage, although, you know, with cashews it can change at the last moment.
Yes.
There is some concern about the timing of the crop in Vietnam. I feel that we will have better crops than last year, that it will be probably a little bit above 2015. So supply-wise, I don't believe that we've any real problems this year. But it's early February. Anything can still happen.
And also, sir, now that the prices of ASEAN is continuously increasing, and do you think even in 2017 the same trend is going to continue? And how is it impacting on the global consumption of cashews?
Well, I think that the higher prices for RCN have had a real shock effect on processors, on buyers of kernels throughout the sector. We saw prices rise sharply towards the end of last year. That has been sustained so far, surprisingly. But I feel there are some stocks unsold at this stage. I think we have a market where there's very little trade in RCN. I think that prices should ease somewhat. We look at good crops coming along right across the Northern Hemisphere. That should have the impact of easing prices. At the same time, this time last year, we were looking at things in a very similar fashion. Now, if I look at Tanzanian raw nuts around $2,200, I don't believe that that's sustainable. There are unsold stocks at destination, there are unsold stocks in the East African origins, and we have the crop coming along. So I feel prices will ease somewhat, but I'm not expecting a collapse in price. I see the market easing down on harvest pressure, still with the possibility that prices could improve as we go through the season, perhaps May, June forward. It's dangerous though, to my mind. This kind of volatility, we've seen prices rise sharply throughout last year.
Right.
And then in the last quarter we saw this dynamic, explosive rise in prices, which on the basis of supply and demand at that moment was probably unwarranted. This has pressurized processors, particularly in southern India.
Yes, sir.
And I think that that is not good for business. Volatility generally
Yes.
is not good for business.
Yes. And consumption, sir, how has it impacted the global consumption?
Consumption, it takes a little bit longer for these high prices to impact consumption. I'd make the same point. Volatility is bad for consumption. If supermarkets, roasters, processors cannot plan forward, they're going to take a very conservative approach. They're not going to promote the product.
Right, sir.
So at this moment in time, we're looking at kernels prices at top end of the range. In 2016, we saw all-time high prices
Right,
for
sir.
cashew kernels. We saw all-time high prices for RCN. This doesn't build confidence amongst buyers. So here we are at a time when the consumer in India, the consumer in Europe, the consumer in the United States is very well disposed toward our product. And what do we offer him? We offer him higher prices, we offer him volatility, we offer him uncertainty of supply. Yes, that is going to have an effect on consumption if it continues over the longer term. 2017 could be a year where we see some impact, particularly in Europe. We have a lot of uncertainty. We have a certain amount of political and economic uncertainty throughout the world at the moment. Add to that these high prices and the possibility of further volatility. No one wants to get caught. No one wants to get caught buying kernels almost at $5 a pound
Yes, sir.
in a market which could quite easily go back to $4. So yes, it does have an impact.
Yes. Now that the cashews are not the cheapest of the nuts when compared to other nuts, do you think there is be a shift in demand from cashews to other nuts like almonds, hazelnuts, pistachios?
Well, let me say first of all, I don't think there's a better nut for snacking, for sweets and for food usage than the cashew kernel.
Yes.
I don't believe that almonds, in terms of the overall usage in those segments, will ever come close to cashews. In the longer term, there is an upward pressure on price for almonds as well. And that too will mean in time that these prices will come closer together. In the immediate term, it's very easy for a consumer today to make a decision to reduce his cashew usage and increase his almond usage. Plus, bear in mind, almonds have a lot of scientifically proven health characteristics. Right. We have the characteristics, but we don't have the proof. Almonds are very well marketed.
Right.
80% of the world's almonds come from California in the US, and they're brilliantly marketed. So in the cashew sector, to avoid this threat, and I'm not saying it's an imminent or even a significant threat, but to avoid it, we do need to improve our game in terms of marketing, in terms of research, in terms of how we promote our product.
And what do you think has been the consumption pattern of cashews in US and that of Europe?
Well, in recent years it's been all good news. European consumption has been rising quickly.
Right, sir.
It has stuttered a little bit last year, but general pattern is very positive. The United States showed really dramatic growth in 2015. A little bit of a correction in 2016.
Yes, sir.
A combination of uncertainty, higher prices, high imports in 2015. Overall, I feel that in those three major consuming areas, North America, Europe and India, demand remains very positive, but for different reasons.
Right.
Greater consumption in India is driven by a wider spread for the product, more affluence, more people interested in buying this product, good economic conditions. In Europe it's about health, it's about using nuts as an alternative protein to red meat. In the United States something similar, but also more what they call grazing, more snacking and different styles of eating. The conditions are good for further growth, no question about it. What can disrupt it? Volatility in price. A health scare, though that seems unlikely. But we should also consider what are the risks in our sector in terms of how the consumer sees us. And we need to look at things like working conditions in factories. We need to look at food safety. These are areas where at any moment something could go wrong and cause devastating impact on demand. So in a way we could say that for this sector the only way is up, but it's up to us in the sector to manage that growth and sustain it over the longer term.
Very well said, sir. And could you please elaborate about the FSM Act, Food Modernization, Safety Modernization?
We, all of us, need to be very serious about quality. We need to be serious about quality management and systemized quality management. The Food Safety Modernization Act comes at a time when the United States is looking more and more like a country that's very careful about the products it imports. There is an atmosphere that means now that this is likely to be very seriously implemented. Bearing in mind your earlier question, for example, to some extent cashews replace or compete with the domestically produced product, almonds. In terms of the Food Safety Modernization Act, processors now need to build relationships with their buyers. They need to work together to develop quality. They need to start seriously looking at food safety programs, HACCP for example, ISO certifications, in a real way. There have been, let's say, a number of certifications that consisted of the use of a photocopier and nothing more. That's not food safety.
Right.
That's just playing games with the system. And that will not work under this kind of legislation. So I do believe at the same time that organizations, processors particularly, who put in place good quality management are building into their business not only compliance but competitive advantage. It's been shown that companies providing better quality with food safety, particularly with certification, are achieving better prices. At the moment, it will get you a little bit more money for your product, but in the future it will be a requirement.
Right.
If you don't have those systems, you're not exporting. So we need to get serious about that, and we need to see it as an integral part of our business.
And what is your message for WCC 2017 for the participants who are here?
Enjoy yourself. Great venue, great town. I see more people here. I think it's almost double the last time around in Dubai. I think we don't generally, we talk great together, but we don't really work together particularly well. We couldn't say we have an integrated sector. I think that if I could see anything to come out of this, it would be, for example, your idea at the Cashew Info of this forum for the Vision 2025. If I saw a group of people coming together to look at that, conflicting views, fine. Conflicting opinions, different ways of looking at things, great. If I saw that coming out of this, I would think this was a major success. At the same time, it's really nice to be here and see so many different people from so many different countries, all with this one thing in common. This infernal cashew nut. This most difficult product that somehow so many people manage to make a living from. Not least all those millions of farmers around the world who grow those cashews.
Thank you so much for being a
It's
part
nice
of
to see you
the
again.